Hey everybody, how's it going? We're going to talk about some Mirthwood today. We're going to run through the first part of the story, the prologue, giving you some tips and tricks, finding everything that is in the game in the beginning, including some things you can miss. And then we'll go through the first couple of quests just so you can get acquainted with the towns of Brightoak and then getting some early power-ups for the rest of your game. So the game starts out, here we go, my name is Jonas, and here in the prologue, you are able to find 3 separate chests. The first chest is directly across from you. It contains a coat. You can go ahead and put that on. Then you're going to find 2 more chests. One on the upper right corner of the map, where you can find a pair of tights, like we see on here. We recommend that you go ahead and put those on as well. And then the last chest you're going to find on the bottom left-hand part of the map, way at the bottom, and here you're going to find a hat. Now, I don't personally like to wear the hat. I don't think it looks very good, but you can go ahead and do that if you'd like. After this, we're going to go ahead and go find our brother. Once we find our brother, he tells us to go find some mushrooms. You can see the first mushrooms here on the left side of the map. The next mushroom is diagonally up to the east part of the map. You can get the mushroom, and then the last mushrooms are right by the entrance to the winery. You can get your mushrooms right here, and that's all 3 of them. If you have Herbalist equipped, sometimes you can get an extra ginseng and you'll complete the quest early. That's fine, just keep going. They'll always come in handy in the long run. So here I picked up the second ginseng, and now I'm going to the third. The third ginseng, after I pick this up, I am told to go north, go to my family. Now, here it's a little bit important, because once you go through these gates, you're going to be faced with only one way to go, and that's to the left. Once you go west, you want to keep going west because there's a first piece of a letter you cannot get otherwise. You talk to that guy and you get a letter, and then you have to go cook mother or father's favorite. Either one you choose, it's fine. The dialogue's a bit different. But after you talk to your family and they tell you about the war and all this other stuff, you're told to go and rest. Downstairs in the basement, there are 2 items you can grab. There is a notebook, a chair, and there is a little note on the desk. Grab those, and then you start in the prologue once more. In here in the house, you can grab a black coat of an elixir, and you can get your family heirlooms portrait. These are important because you cannot get them at any other point during the game. Once you pass this prologue, you cannot go back. I personally think the black looks better. So as we're running through, the biggest thing in this prologue is to pay attention to all the chests and things you can grab. You can talk to your family, nothing really comes of it. Then you keep moving forward and you'll find a chest with an elixir. You'll also find yourself a chest with a bucket that you can wear on your head. You can also sell it for money, so it's important to grab this right after this dead deer. Then as you keep going forward, you'll find yourself with a choice to make. I personally, if I'm going a melee build, I'm going to go ahead and try to free him so I can fight every single bandit that comes along, because it's all experience points. Here you get yourself a little fish. The fish is really important because it's your first trout that you get in the game. Then you go onto the ship and you can grab a second trout right before you head downstairs. Now, because you traveled, you can pick up a 3rd trout when you get to the island that you're going to, and then you're going to go a little bit south when you get down, and you're going to grab your 4th trout of the game. You can't cook them yet, but it's important to have them in your inventory because you get to pick up some more things here, and you get to pick up some items that you could potentially sell in town. So there's a little bit of a trick to the game. In the beginning, you really don't have to be drinking all the mead and drinking all the brandy that you find. I would save those and sell them. After you arrive to your homestead, you're going to go ahead and you're going to rest. Once you rest, your quest is going to begin, and you're going to start getting 2 quests that you need to follow. The road to Brightoak, and you need to meet the stranger at the Hazy Hag. Now, the road to Brightoak is important to complete because that's how you get your tools to start mining and to start chopping down trees, etc. So I would suggest you start with that one first. You can set quests to follow using your journal, and you just press F and it'll show you kind of where you need to go. The game doesn't hold your hand too much, but the important thing here to remember is that the whole purpose of the game is exploration and to kind of figure things out as you go along. That being said, as soon as you head down south, you can pick up some mushrooms from there, but the important thing here is to pick up the rusty iron sword. It's an increase in DPS. If you're going melee, it's extremely important. and you can pick it up for free. The next step is to go and pick up the bow. The bow is also extremely important because if you're going to go an archery build or a ranger build, the sooner you pick this up, the better. Now, the way experience works in this game, it's not tied to damage done, it's to the last hit being completed. So if you're going to go melee, then you make sure your last hit is with the melee, with the sword, and if you're going to go archery, make sure the hit is with the bow. Now, you might have noticed there was something interesting about that particular house, that I was able to grab these items from the barrel. As far as I know, those are the only items within Brightoak that you can grab without being marked as stealing, and they sometimes contain up to 4 or 6 iron ore, which is important in the beginning of the game. So here, the blacksmith gives you the bow in order to shoot down the hammer from the tree, and you just go a little bit to the west, and the tree is right there, and the hammer is right there in the tree. You can try to shoot it down and fail miserably like I did. I usually just go to the south and shoot it upwards, and that usually does it on the first try like that. Now here's the next big tip. In the game asks you to build a cooking pot, but you don't need to build a cooking pot, in fact, because there's one right here, right to the west of the blacksmith, and that cooking pot is important because you're able to go ahead and cook some food that you normally wouldn't. I would not cook those apples into baked apples. I think that's a waste. I would save those red apples for when I start getting honey, which you can get one from a tree close by, and start making some honeyed apples. Honeyed apples are important because they replenish both your food and your energy meter. And early on in the game, energy is kind of hard to come by. So right there you can see I'm picking up the honey, and I can make some honeyed apples. Another big thing about food that you have to realize is that once you cook an item, the game requires you to have an open slot in order to put that cooked item. So if I'm making honeyed apples, I need honey, I need apples, and I need a slot in order to put those honeyed apples in. And the reason the game does that is because what if you don't want to cook all of your apples and you want to keep some with you? Well, then you can't just substitute one food item for the other one-to-one, right? That's just the way it works. After you get the blacksmith back his hammer, he gives you renown, and he gives you an iron bar. And iron bars are extremely important in this game because 2 iron bars are required to make 1 anvil. The anvil is important in the early game because that's how you create your weapons, that's how you craft your armor, all these other things. So what you see me doing now is I'm going around town and picking up the 3 different trout that are available to pick from the lines. There's one in the market, there's one by the Hazy Hag, and there's one a little bit south of the market. Those trout are important to pick up because once again we've grabbed 4 in the prologue plus 3 trout here plus 1 more by the lake. That's 8 trout we're able to grab for free right off the bat. Each trout replenishes a bunch of food, almost all of your food meter. So if you get those in the beginning of the game, you don't really have to worry about food for at least a good 8 days, which is a big deal in the early game. Here's the market. So what I'm doing now is I'm selling pretty much everything I don't need. Everything that has to do with the bucket I picked up, the copper sword, everything I'm just selling off. I don't need it. I don't want to keep it. I don't want it to clog up my inventory, and early gold is extremely important in this game. So the next piece here tells you where there's 2 books that tell you where things are in the freelands, like what sorts of areas have the materials. One's here, the other one's by a fountain in the park area. Either one of those books you can read, and once you read one, the other one doesn't read anymore because you already picked it up. Here's one of the first contract we pick up. We pick up 2 contracts in Brightoak, well 3, but the first 2 are really the easiest one. The other one is not, and I'll show you which one that is later. But this contract is easy to do. But here I'm picking up the fried trout recipe. That is an early game recipe you need to pick up and you need to learn. Why? Because we currently have 7 trout in our inventory. And 7 trout in our inventory can be converted to fried trout. Do not go around grabbing items out of people's... There's that book I was talking about. Do not go around grabbing items if it says steal, because you just lose morality, and it'll make it harder in the long run to play the game. So as you can see here, what I'm doing is I'm going out to pick up the 8th and final trout you can get in the early game. I'm going around because at this side of the lake there are some items to be picked up here. One, there's this really cool hat that I like to wear, the sharpshooter hat, especially if you're going a bow build. There's also a lot of herbs along the way to the cooking pot. You can pick up some ginseng, you can pick up some aloe. And you always want to be picking up herbs as you're going along the freelands because that's how you craft your potions. So here I learned the fried trout recipe. You can see I have 8 pieces of trout right there, and I'm going to go ahead and cook those, but I can't. Why? Because there's no space for me to cook them in. So now that I'm able to, I'm going to go ahead and cook all the trout at once. And I'm going to make myself some honeyed apples, which are really, really, really good to have in the early game because they provide so much energy. And now you can see my food inventory has freed up. After that, I'll go ahead and pick up some other items that I see. And it's always good to grab items that are stackable. So grabbing berries, grabbing honey, all those things are stackable, so you can just grab as many as you can and have them on you. The other big thing to know at the beginning of the game is that you want to make sure that you are collecting all the herbs and you're collecting all the berries that you see within the town, because they give quite a lot of food and you can just go munching on them as you go, and then that way you can save those 8 pieces of trout you got for when you really are in a situation where you don't have food on you. So here I'm picking up another quest from Domin. Domin gives me a quest to find his clothing. I just chose the right dialogue piece to keep going. Those red barrels, they explode if you hit them. You cannot hit them through a wall, but you can hit them through the other side. So keep in mind those red barrels, because they do a bunch of damage to you, but they do a bunch of damage to enemies. So in the road to Brightoak, the innkeeper told me to go visit Kimberly at the farm, but on the way there I saw some herbs and I picked them up. I pick up this scarecrow hat because I can sell it. And then here's Kimberly, and I'm going to go ahead and talk to her. She's going to give me some dialogue choices. I choose the one that allows me to move forward. And now it's going to tell me, well, you got to buy some peas and you got to buy some onion seeds. Before that, I'm going to go ahead and pick up the flour. The flour is actually interesting because it's a material, it's not food, and it gets turned into bread. So carrying those around is actually pretty nice. Once again, I sold stuff that I didn't need here with Kimberly, but then I went ahead and I bought the seeds that I needed to buy to progress the quest. Once I purchased 3 onion seeds and once I purchased 3 pea seeds, I am now tasked with finding the tools. Now, you can peruse at your whim all the things that you can buy and sell here in this farm. Here's where you can buy your animals. Here's where you can buy all your seeds. Your seeds are limited. Your seeds are limited, and every 3 days they kind of restock. The most important thing to remember is that the game, you can sell as much as you want. You can buy stuff later. In the early game, what you need the most is money, because your toolkits to upgrade your tools are very expensive. So selling everything you don't need is actually the way to go versus trying to hoard it. Here I'm just following the road because I was tasked with a quest. I found a deer and I shot it, and it's important that once you get the bow, you start shooting as many animals as possible. Now, if you want to go the vegetarian route and you don't want to do that, that's fine. But shooting animals actually becomes an incredibly important source of food. So you have all this trout, right? You have 8 pieces of trout. Well, you can get venison and you can get rabbit, and you don't need recipes for that. And you can keep those around. Here are the tools. That means that the road to Brightoak is now complete. I'm going to get another quest now to go back to my farm and plant these seeds and do other things. However, as I told you in the beginning of this video, if we go down to the south, we know that there's a cooking pot that we can use in the meantime, so I don't feel pressured to immediately have to create a cooking pot in order to start taking advantage of the food I'm picking up. So now here, what am I doing? I'm killing these animals and I'm leaving them there. The reason I'm doing that is because I can always come back and collect the meat later, and this doesn't disappear. So here, I'm getting ready to kind of wind down on the first day. An important thing to do on your very first day is to create a barrel. You need 30 wood to make one barrel, an 8x2 barrel. The reason I want to make a barrel early instead of anything else is because I want to start storing materials in there, and materials are extremely important early on in the game. So materials are stone, wood, copper, iron, etc. I'd rather not be carrying those around with me because they're not consumables, right? So some other folks say, oh, you know what, expand your food slots. I disagree. I think material slots are more important in the long run. So just because you can pick so many up along your travels, and food is really easy to come by in the freelance. So I went ahead and I picked up my 30 pieces of wood, and I crafted a barrel. I set my barrel down close to my workstation because it's a proximity thing, so if your barrel is close by, then you're able to do that. I also remember I have finished the quest where I picked up all the seeds, so now the next part of the quest is it's going to ask me to plant these seeds, so I might as well just, before I go to sleep, and recover my energy, I might as well go ahead and clear the farm. Pick up whatever stones are around there. I'm going to need them to create my cooking pot. I'm going to need them to create my other things, like my kiln. So I might as well just go ahead and clear them out. And I might as well just go ahead and, like I said, build my barrel and store those things in there. Common mistake that I see people doing is they want to rush through the early game, and you don't really need to if you organize yourself properly. So it's only been 20 minutes, right? And I already have a barrel. And I'm going to go ahead and make the small barrel, and I'm going to store things in there that I do not need right now to be carrying around with me. Specifically, you know, stone, wood, copper, all those other things. Early on, copper is actually a really important source of revenue because you don't need it for anything else. So I recommend that you just sell as much copper as possible until the next patch comes along that makes you need it. But see, now I just cleaned out a whole bunch of my inventory. I can store things like butter, I can store things like animal fat, which I don't really want to be eating, and I can just leave it there. It doesn't go bad anyway. Once that's done, I go ahead and I can eat food that I don't need. For example, mushrooms, I can just chomp on them before going to bed and it's fine. You do lose a little bit of hunger while you sleep, so it's important just to make sure you're topped off as much as possible before you do that. But that's it for the first day, really. You go ahead and you crafted your barrel, you got your bow, you got your rusty iron sword, you did some hunting, hopefully, and you got yourself some deer meat and some deer pelts, and you've got your 8 pieces of trout that'll set you up for success in the early game. Next video, we're going to go ahead and cover the next couple of days of Mirthwood. Thanks for watching.